Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, and you are on the record. A unique podcast, at least I hope so, that talks about the past 50 years, COVID, and the next 50 years of the sports business, where it's been, what the challenges were, and where it's going. Every week, we will theme it around major events and a mega interview, and hopefully you'll be entertained and you might even learn something. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and you're on the record. Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. The greatest 2 or 3 weeks of sports business in any calendar year. Certainly no exception this year. Everybody's eyes after the national championship game turned to New Orleans for their hosting of yet another Super Bowl and their 120,000 or so visitors and their $600 to $700 million of annual economic impact and the catalyst for the $500 to $600 million renovation of the Caesars Superdome, the Legacy Grant Program, which puts in roughly $30 to $40 to $50 million in the coffer of New Orleans foundation dollars and philanthropy, and maybe more important, the sustaining, enduring legacy after the horrific terrorist attack the morning of the Sugar Bowl and how the community has responded. Jay Cicero began his career in sports as a group sales and marketing head for the New Orleans Zephyrs, the minor league team. He went to special projects, director of sales for the Olympic track and field, and then he became involved in and then ultimately the head of the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and the New Orleans Super Bowl host committees, 08, 14, 17, NBA All-Star Host Committee, and on and on. Luckily, the Pelicans and the Saints and the Superdome are all connected in essence, partnerships, and the Sports Foundation certainly is an implementation arm. Look at what they do. The Junior Olympic Games, SEC men's basketball tournaments, the Bassmaster Classic. You tell me how they do that in the Dome. No, they do it on the river. SEC Gymnastics Championship, WrestleMania, College Football Championship Games 2020 this year and beyond. And the bottom line of all of this is Super Bowls are their big deal. Obviously, Jay front and center on all of these issues. Very important perspective as we head into the Super Bowl weeks. Super Bowl normally is a time of national and international reflection, never more than this year. Here's Jay Cicero. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, inside the sports business, $1.3 trillion business of sports. We talk about some of the top issues every single year, and Super Bowl rises to the level of the top business issue every year. Economic impact, some would say $500 million to $1 billion, depending on the city. It's refined to a science. It is continually the top-rated show, streaming or otherwise, in the United States and around the world. And frankly, it doesn't happen without a solid foundational support on the ground. New Orleans hasn't had a Super Bowl since 2013, but it's coming back with a vengeance. Super Bowl 59 will be front and center in just a couple of weeks. And one of the people who is an unsung hero of the Super Bowl Foundation and the world, Jay Cicero, president and CEO of the Greater New Orleans Host Committee, Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, Super Bowl Host Committee. I got a number of different titles, but the bottom line is you're the guy that's driving it. Hey, Jay, how you doing?
I'm good, Rick. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being on under frenetic circumstances, let's put it that way. And so as we sit here, the Super Bowl is destined to be, yet again, the crowning jewel of American sports events heading into 2025. We've got the FIFA Club World Cup. We've got the FIFA World Cup the next year. We've got a whole bunch of other events, but this remains the king in a town suited and created for a Super Bowl. Central casting, downtown facility, hotels all over the community. Also, you've had a lot of practice, haven't you?
We have. This is our record-tying 11th Super Bowl overall in New Orleans, and this will be my 4th Super Bowl to serve in an executive position. First one in 1997, and then I was the executive director for the Super Bowl host committee in 2002, president and CEO of the host committee for 2013, and once again here in 2025. So yes, we do have a lot of experience, but as the event grows, you always learn what to do, what not to do from other cities, and how to handle the growth of something so magnificent for your city and state.
Yeah, and we'll get into that and also a lot of the other events that the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation has been involved in. But when you started as the sports group sales and marketing head for the Shreveport Captains, which is a double A baseball club, by the way, in Shreveport, for those of you ill-informed, did you ever think you'd end up as the guy who has the keys to the Super Bowl for the NFL and otherwise?
No, I did not. It I just said this at a function the other day. You know, there's a musician and local music mogul, Master P,
Yep.
who I sat on a stage with uh, for a New Orleans Chamber event a few weeks ago, and I said, if you'd asked me 25 years ago or 30 years ago when I was doing more than that now, 40 years ago for a double A team in Shreveport, doing group sales, if I would ever share a stage with Master P or be in charge of a Super Bowl. I said, there's no way. So it's been quite a journey. This organization was formed in 1988 to do exactly what we're doing now, and to have our fourth Super Bowl hopefully under our belt here in 5 or 6 weeks, then it's something to be very proud of.
The foundation, however, has sustained. It's more, much more than just putting on a Super Bowl. But you've gone a pretty circuitous route. The director of sales for the '92 Olympic track and field trials, and then you went to the New Orleans Zephyrs baseball club, AAA. You've been with the foundation, as I read this, since '97, and so you've obviously had an opportunity to see it grow and grow it. Talk a little bit about the foundation generally, because it's for people that don't know, most all sports communities have these kind of civic organizations. Some much better than others, some with different roles. But you guys have a unique position because of your Super Bowls and because of all the other sports.
Well, it is very unique, and there are a handful around the country who do the same. But yes, I was hired in 1990, the day we were awarded the Olympic track and field trials, and the legendary Mike Millay is the one who hired me.
Yeah.
And we worked together for 3 years here at the Sports Foundation before being lured away to start the AAA baseball team here in New Orleans. So I did that 2 years, got the franchise off the ground, and came back in 1995 when Mike moved to Disney Sports to start the Disney Wild World of Sports, and Doug Thornton took over for him, who had been a volunteer for us here for a number of years. Doug was hired to be the general manager of the Superdome in 1997 after the '97 Super Bowl, and I took over as the president and CEO of the organization in June of '97, and have been serving in that role ever since. So, our organization bidding upon and managing sporting events for economic development purposes here in New Orleans. We're very fortunate to have a city that is built to host these types of events, and that we feel like we've got the relationships and the ability and the resources to be able to continue to do what we do at a high level for many years to come.
Yeah, and a diverse series of events, quite clearly. All of the Super Bowls you talked about, but 4 men's Final Fours, 4 women's Final Fours, 17 New Orleans Bowls, 3 NBA All-Star games, throw in a couple of WrestleManias for good measure, partridge in a pear tree, and you got a whole bunch of other events. But when you say uniquely suited, there is a template, and obviously you need public support for it as well. And it's based on the theory that heads in beds, restaurants, national awareness generates economic impact, and sports is big business, right?
It absolutely is big business, especially here in Louisiana and New Orleans. We only have 4.5 million people in our entire state. You compare that to the metropolitan areas that we compete against for these major events, those areas are bigger than our entire state. so we've been very fortunate to be able to compete with the big boys. And we do that in a number of different ways. We have a number of different resources. The fact that our organization is here year round saves a lot of funding, a lot of money in building out host committees to do these large events, whether it be a Final Four or Super Bowl or NBA All-Star Game or WrestleMania, et cetera, et cetera. We use the same staff and economy of scale to manage, to bid upon and manage these events. So what we learn from one event, we carry on to another. What mistakes we've made from one event, we try and not make that same mistake the next time around, and so on. And so to be able to compete with these large cities and large states that have an incredible amount of Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 1000 companies versus what we have here in Louisiana, I think is a credit to the relationships that we have here with not only ASM Global at the Superdome, the Convention Center, our New Orleans and Company, which is our CVB, and the hospitality community in itself, and the business community. And so it really takes a village to do what we do, to be successful, and our main focus is remaining competitive for many years to come.
Yeah, and you compete with all cities, including cities whose political structure understands that sports is big business. Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, Orlando, and there are a lot of those. And big cities that are big cities and say, well, we'll get events and some may come and some may not. But the uniqueness, as I think you said, is that your structure allows you to use the template not only to bid on a Super Bowl, but to bid on, for example, the AAU Junior Olympic Games or the SEC Gymnastics Championship. So the economy of scale also allows you to bring in and support the relatively small niche events as well, right?
It does. And some of those events are a lot more fun than the harrowing aspects
Yeah.
of hosting a men's Final Four or Super Bowl. And even more harrowing, maybe the AAU Junior Olympic Games. That was a very difficult event logistically, and it is a marathon overall to be able to produce that event. But we really are set up to do almost any type of event, and we're situated and structured in a way where we have a marketing department, we have an operations department, we have an administrative department and a PR department, just like any event, and executive and administrative roles put in there. So we're really tailored and suited towards the management of events. So that's really what sets us apart from some of the other groups that maybe bid. There may be a separate group that bids on an event and then a separate group that actually manages it. The group that manages it says, wait a minute, what did you promise? What did you do? And how are we going to fulfill that? Well, we have to raise all the funds necessary to fulfill all the obligations in the bid that we headed up in the first place. So the responsibility kind of lies with us to make sure that not only we are sound financially for these events, but operationally execute everything associated with them, depending on what the event requirements are.
It also helps. You got a couple of core buildings, the Smoothie Center and the Caesar Superdome, that are driven by one management company and also influenced by one ownership group who also happen to own the Saints and the Pelicans. That's got to help, right?
It does help. It streamlines communication. You don't have NBA team and NFL team working against each other. There's a lot of intricacies involved with all of that. But the relationship, and that's one of our key relationships here in New Orleans, is with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. They have a lot of the same, they're kind of like us. They have the same management folks that are running both teams. And there's an economy of scale in doing that here.
So I remember in the old days when I was working with the NFL and we had a Katrina issue and there was a major public commitment of dollars to the Superdome and avoided the San Antonio Saints. We had that conversation. And then now we have some new renovation dollars with about 450 million of upgrades to the Superdome. It's a building that keeps on giving. And I know you've got to make sure that that house remains in order to be in a position to compete for major events, right?
I'll give credit where credit is due. The New Orleans Saints, Mrs. Benson, ASM Global, the state of Louisiana, all put up funding in order to be able to. It's actually 550 million that ended up.
Sorry, I owe you 100 million.
It was 450. It was 450 pre-pandemic, and
Yeah.
they did it every off season in between the Saint season and the annual Essence Festival that is produced and hosted in the Caesar Superdome every year over the summer. And so to do it like that costs a little more and took a lot longer. So four to five off seasons to be able to do this massive renovation. But the dome has never looked better. It is an iconic piece of history that we should all, and a treasure that we should all hold on to as long as possible. You can go build new facilities in places, and I've been to a lot of them around,
Sure you have.
and nothing compares to this facility as far as the style, its uniqueness, its history, and all of those fit in the culture of New Orleans, and that's what makes it so unique.
Well, and the cumulative economic impact, I'm not going to be a shill. You can do it yourself, but it's based on solid economic theory. And when you look at all the economic impact of things that have been in that building since its inception, it is mind-boggling. But my other question is, does the community get the fact that the pandemic has caused a certain reevaluation of priorities? And just like 100 years ago, when public money was used to build Yankee Stadium to help us get past the Spanish flu, we have a commitment of infrastructure to help us get past COVID, and infrastructure takes on a lot of different forms. Your community seems to get the idea that sports and entertainment facilities are an important component of community infrastructure?
Absolutely. I think they totally understand it. I remember pre-pandemic, of course, it was 20 years ago. There was a whole study put together whether not to build a new stadium or to renovate the Superdome and continue to renovate the Superdome, and it was overwhelmingly in favor of keeping the Superdome. It was, I don't even know if it was the Mercedes-Benz Superdome at the time, but that sense of care and heartfelt sense for this facility. And some people don't understand that, but a lot of people do who go to sporting events all the time, and facilities grow on us. And this one being 49 now, going on 50 years old here. And that's pretty amazing that there's been so many other facilities across the country that have been torn down, rebuilt, torn down again, rebuilt somewhere else in the suburbs, and this one has remained an incredible icon on this, not only the sports scene but the event scene, and is the symbol of one of the big symbols of New Orleans. And we hope it remains that way for many, many years to come.
The iconic issue of all of this, combined with the international awareness of Super Bowl, we all understand the television viewership, the social media and streaming viewership, the awareness. Super Bowl is appointment viewing. We understand that, but what? And some of this is intangible, but how do you quantify the amazing impact that for that day, for that week, the eyes of the world are basically on New Orleans?
That's pretty easy for us. Back in 2013, which again, 12 years ago, there was a very solid economic impact study done by the University of New Orleans that proved that the Super Bowl had a $480 million economic impact. So we get asked all the time, well, what do you think it's going to be for 25? I'm like, I don't know, but I know 12 years ago it was 480, and I know it's going to be higher than that now. So if you want to argue with 480, go ahead. I think those are pretty solid numbers, but I think it's proven in between $500 million and $1 billion each year, like you said earlier, in economic impact. But what people don't really put a value on, and folks like me and you and I do, but there are 6,000 credentialed members of the media now that travel with Super Bowl each year. That type of PR and opportunity to promote all the good things that are happening in Louisiana and New Orleans doesn't come along very often. And the media loves New Orleans, and we love the media here. So we're very thankful that to be hosting our record-tying 11th. It's a record 8th in any one facility in the Caesars Superdome, and so we're very proud of that also.
I remember when Doug Thornton, the person you referred to, was walking around the facility, showing the mark of how high the water was getting because of Katrina. It is amazing that it's in the rearview mirror, but people will never forget it. But that building, I think, also was an important part of the emotional recovery of New Orleans as well, wasn't it?
No doubt about that. I mean, that building has been through a lot of good and some bad. And it's just part of the storied history of that facility, and it brings back a lot of emotions, some negative, some very positive, but emotions as they are. You've got to understand how important that facility is to our landscape and what we do here, not only as a sports foundation, but to our people in general. It's New Orleans folks love history. They love facilities. They love the ability to talk about the great things that have happened at that facility, and you can't discount it. There's just so many iconic events, like we talked about. Again, this will be the 8th Super Bowl in that facility. That's absolutely amazing. New Orleans has been hosting Super Bowls now for 55 years. That is incredible. So we were in Las Vegas last year, and one of my longstanding employees here was hired by Las Vegas to be the CEO of their Super Bowl host committee this last year. And we were talking about with a lot of the folks from Las Vegas, and we started talking about, it'll be 55 years that we've been hosting Super Bowls, and this was their first one, and to be our 11th. And that was kind of telling to see how long it would take for them to even get to 11, given the landscape of Super Bowl award years now. And most of them figured they'd be long gone, gone by the time that happened. And it's like, well, that's what it means to New Orleans, and that's how important it is to our city.
They'll get one every 8 or 9 years, which means maybe 80 or 90 years from now, they'll be up to where you guys are. And the other question too, New Orleans is nothing if not resilient. We talked about Katrina. We won't even touch the power outage that happened at the last Super Bowl, but that was technical, and everybody's over that, and the dollars will fix that.
All fixed and beyond us, and, it hasn't happened since. And has been 12 years of NFL games, numerous concerts ever since. It's all fixed and behind us.
And so obviously you're 24/7 on security. We had an unbelievable issue that impacted your community New Year's morning. Sugar Bowl happened, getting ready for Super Bowl. More important than ever now to make sure that New Orleans Strong survives and thrives and uses the Super Bowl as an opportunity to tell the world New Orleans is fine and recovering and back?
We see it very much like you're describing. I mean, obviously the tragedy of what happened, last week was a difficult blow, especially obviously for the victims and their families. And it's a lone wolf, and it's caused a lot of concern here, not just about security, but about our people, and to make sure that not only do they feel safe, but they feel like they have the support from the city and the state to emotionally to be able to get over something like that. And have the Super Bowl coming to New Orleans is just a coincidence, I guess, that we have the ability to produce this event and be involved with such an iconic event that can give everyone a lot of pride. New Orleanians have a lot of pride in events. That's why we host so many here and do them so well. And having the biggest of the big here, coming up in 5 or 6 weeks here is something that's very important and top of mind for all of us.
Final question for you. It's a week before the event. Let's hypothesize. And all the books, all the preparing, all is done. Peter O'Reilly in the NFL has his big book done, and everybody is just ready for clockwork, everything top of mind. You've already had dress rehearsals and everything happens. Can you ever feel comfortable? Are there ever times where you're going to say, all right, I'm fine, let me rest? When do you rest? Monday morning when do you rest? February 10th?
February 10th is probably when I start resting. But I remember last time that we hosted the Super Bowl event week was so smooth and so easy for us because we had put so much time and effort in preparing everything for that week. It was really we had a great chance to enjoy that event more than anything. And so we're hoping to do the same this time around. We've taken on a lot more responsibility this time than we did the last couple of times. You have to also remember we were the first post 9/11 Super Bowl here. So the security upgrades and everything that happened at that Super Bowl were just amazing. But I knew that the Superdome was the safest place in the world that day. Yeah. And that's what we all took pride in, is that when you have that type of preparation, you have those type of professionals who are working hand in hand, you know that you're going to be in a facility that can host anything that time around. And it'll be similar to that this time, or in the sense of next week, as we were pretending.
As we were pretending. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Jay Cicero, President, CEO of the New Orleans Sports Foundation, the host committee. The event and the process is in damn good hands with you being involved in it, and I really, really appreciate the time. Good luck. You don't need good luck, but we'll continue to check in and make sure that everything goes well. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I wish I could take all the credit for it. I can't. A lot of people before me, after me, and staff and board of directors, but we got a huge effort happening for this event. But thanks for having me on, and I appreciate all the support.
Of course you do. We'll keep checking in. Rick Horrow, sports professor inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, heading to Super Bowl 59. Speak with you soon. Interesting perspective looking ahead to the Super Bowl, but before we do that, let's review some of the issues that have happened in the opening bell over the last couple of weeks, 1 through 5. Number 1, the CFP title game inauguration, same day, coldest day ever for the inauguration. That goes indoors. But 7.5 hours after the inauguration, obviously the national championship game, it is synergistic all the way through the beginning of this year. Remember, the polls closed on November 5 before the election, and that was the first of many of the college football prognostications of the selection committee that ended up with the 12. Now we have an inauguration that basically kicks off a game with Notre Dame and Ohio State. The trade show that is the national championship, somewhat deterred by the weather. It's been cold, but the college football players only meeting, for example, warmed up the issue. A unionized attempt in 2013 by Northwestern, then Dartmouth, then USC football and basketball players. The bottom line is it is absolutely a fluid situation, and certainly the players-only meeting was one of many over the next few years that are going to be defining the future of college sports and college football. That's number 1. Number 2, which is also a big deal this week, it involves the opportunities for basketball. Mav Carter and others are pledging to raise $5 billion for a new international basketball league. Facebook executive Grady Burnett, Skype co-founder Jeff Prentice, and others are trying to raise the money. 6 men, 6 women's teams, international destinations, very carefully done, crafted kind of like the way Formula One does. They go for a week or two. They bring their road show to other places. And obviously, a lot of Euro League, Asian League, Australia's NBL, the Chinese Basketball Association, as well as the NBA, WNBA, and NCAA, all looking for alternatives or certainly common governance. Those would be big issues over the last couple of weeks. Number 3, the Professional Women's Hockey League certainly is looking at expanding, and one of the things that they're doing is a roadshow. The Minnesota Frost and the Montreal Victoria, it took place in an unusual location in Denver, 1,000 miles from either team, but they drew 14,000 fans with a league that's averaging about 5,000. The PWHL brings hockey at the highest level. They're looking at Buffalo, Edmonton, Quebec, Raleigh, and Detroit and St. Louis to make sure that they have a solid foundation. Right now, kind of barnstorming. The average fan attendance in the regular home games scheduled, about 4,000. They want to increase it. They want to generate expansion franchise and fees. They want to develop a serious relationship with the National Hockey League. All checklist items. Some have been done and more need to be done. That's number 3. Number 4, Tiger Woods, Mike McCarley, Rory McIlroy, about 1 million viewers for the debut. Numbers similar for week 2. One was Rory's. The second week was Tiger. They go through regular season until March 4. Then the playoffs start. The prize money goes from $9 million to $1.5 million from the 6 teams. 6 teams aren't interested as much in the prize money as they are forging history. I was there for the debut. Very interesting. Some people say great. Some people say tweak. Nobody says bad idea. And let's see where that goes. And we're waiting for January 27. Tiger and Rory square off. That's going to be a ratings bonanza as well, we suspect. So that's number 4. Number 5, Quinn Ewers. He is front and center. Everybody's talking about him as a third-round draft pick. But wait, he received an $8 million offer from an unnamed university to go play his senior eligible year at that school and then worry about the college or the pro ranks. He was making about $6 million in NIL plus another $1.4 million for signing with GT Sports Marketing in 2021. He said he wanted to end his collegiate career as a Longhorn. 6 interceptions, but 22 touchdowns in 2023, 31 touchdowns, 12 picks this season, the win over Clemson, the win over Arizona State. Clearly a Manning in the future at Texas. So he is going to the pros. But some say he turned down $8 million to get there. That's the current state of NIL. And those are the 5 looking for backward. Let's talk about looking forward. Number 1, the Big 10 Athlete Revenue Sharing Agreement. This is a really important issue over time, and we'll have to see how it's viewed with colleges all taking a look at it. It's not final, but the agreement, hypothetically distributed to Big 10 athletes through the schools, calls for any and all athletes to basically give up any legal claims to employee status as part of a planned revenue sharing structure and lets the schools be reimbursed for some payment for athlete transfers, but also let them distribute the revenue from NIL's perspective. The MOU also contains a morals clause. It requires the athlete to be in good academic standing. It explicitly asserts that the agreement is not pay for play, so if the rules do change, they don't have to change the rules as well. Xavier Lucas, a Wisconsin kid, was talking about committing to Miami before and independent of the transfer portal. Wisconsin may accuse Miami of tampering. Those kind of issues need to get worked out. That's why this kind of agreement is really important. We don't want to talk about the fine print today because it's going to change, but this is the first of many of these kind of governance, let's call it trial balloons, that are being distributed and seeing what happens. The $20.5 million per year commitment under the proposed House settlement, of course, very important as you look at the future, there will be a lot of these trial balloons before the ultimate agreement gets done. And that's number one, looking forward. Number two, the Commanders, look at them. The Ravens, yeah, but they'll be back. And so the intersection of regional NFL territorial rights has never been so profound as on those two teams. A fan in Laurel, Maryland, sits at the intersection of M&T Bank Stadium 20 miles away and Northwest Stadium, the Commanders' former FedEx Field, at 15 miles away. And under current NFL guidelines, the Ravens are restricted from sponsorships, community initiatives, promotional activities, and the like. Prince George's County has a legacy as the team's kind of only team to the Ravens' founding in 1996. The Ravens argue the boundaries stifle their growth. Lamar Jackson ought to have some benefit in those areas, and the rules ought to be changed. Josh Harris rejected the NFL proposal for a compromise, arguing that his $6+ billion commitment to buy assumed those territorial rights. It's not just there, but it's overlapping jurisdictions in other regions around the country. The NFL has some work to do. That's number two, looking forward. Number three, Mitsubishi extends the NBL tie-up through 2028. That's in Australia, about $900,000 per year. It began with their 2025 finals in March. They've had a history of it over the last year. The Australian League boasted a 20% increase in awareness, about 1 million attendance, and a television increase as well. So the bottom line is international basketball is happening everywhere, and certainly it's positive down under. Continue to look for that trend, and that's number three. Number four, the Saudi Pro League embraces AI as Stats Perform ties up with them. The new agreement will give every top-flight Saudi club and the league's own media and digital teams access to new tools and performance insights powered by Opta and Opta AI. They combine player tracking, on-ball event, aggregated fitness data, multiple AI-powered predictive metrics. The software's data from dozens of overseas competitors also made available to recruitment analytics working on this for the SPL. All available data approved and available to the Saudi Arabia Football Foundation. Innovative data solutions feed AI to enhance club performance, analysis, and scouting. They don't need any help. They got a lot of money, but now they got AI. That's number four. And number five, AI-enabled sports media firms are 3 times as likely to find content commercialization easier. 20% digital media apps and 33% betting platforms already benefiting, and 40% of sponsors, brands, and agencies agree that AI is enhancing the ability to generate sponsorship, corporate and otherwise. The new study surveyed over 700 media executives, Broncos, NBC, ESPN, City Football Group. Point is, from different perspectives in different countries, and they say deeper fan connections powered by AI, innovation, and cross-departmental collaboration. You know what that means? It means money shows data, and data shows performance, and performance shows money. Those are the issues looking ahead, and the issues looking over the last couple of weeks. That's our show for today. We'd like to thank Jay Cicero, who's really busy in New Orleans, and thank you for giving us some time. Callie Kazire helped us put the show together as he always does. Thank you all for listening and watching. We'll be on site at Super Bowl and doing things closer to the Super Bowl as we go forward. Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. Speak with you soon.